In the grand scheme of things, 200K isn't even that much. No, it's a lot of money, man. You're crazy. Like, don't be this person either, okay? Like, don't be the type of person like saying 200K isn't that much. Of course, it's a lot of money. It's not $200,000. It's like the car itself is $140,000, okay? Like, if we're talking about actual numbers. Load of money, man. Are you crazy? Most people don't make that kind of money in a year. Are you insane? Of course it's a lot of money. No, it is. It is. It is a lot of money. Like, don't be delusional, you know? That, of course. It is totally an abundant purchase. It's a luxury car. It's a luxury vehicle. When I drove in Toyota Camry, they were saying I'm LARPing as a poor person, hiding my wealth.
Hello everyone, once again from the consumer capitalist hellscape of the United Kingdom. I'm appropriately dressed today, wearing my Port FC, a Thai football team, which is absolutely covered in various sponsors of different corporations. You do love these Asian football kits. But everyone has heard the saying, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. This just used to be a statement of fact from like left-wing people because they're acknowledging the unjust system, the unjust economic order we all participate in. But what has happened recently is that lots of people are actually taking this saying and thinking it means there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, therefore do whatever you want, buy whatever you want, work with any company that will pay you, because if there's no ethical consumption, then who really cares? And I kind of want to address this today, and Hasan might be in the thumbnail, and don't worry Hasan fans, this isn't like a hit piece on Hasan, but I just want to talk about him and the sort of discourse he created with buying a $1,000 Gucci shirt and buying like a 200K car. And I think it's just an interesting case study and the reaction to that, and how we kind of discuss consumerism, materialism, and just this ideology of continuously buying stuff, especially in the West, especially in America. America is probably like the worst example, but it happens in loads of countries now, and consumer capitalism is spreading completely around the globe as well, and that's something I noticed going around on my travels. No matter where you go, the same corporations show up, the same clothes shops show up, like H&M in Japan, or like Gucci and Prada in Hanoi, Vietnam, and places in Cambodia as well. Like, it is everywhere. But what I want to do today is just really discuss this. Like, this isn't a video giving you all the answers on how we should feel as left-wing people about consumer capitalism, about materialism, but I just thought it would be a fun discussion and to discuss like my own personal views on these things, because I think we all have different views in our relationship to consumer capitalism. Some of us really, really like clothes. Some of us really like cars. Some of us really like tech, or some of us really like video games. And we all might indulge in these like far too much. And I just want to ask the question, like, is this a good thing, or should we challenge this? Because I think primarily we should challenge our capitalist consumption, and we should challenge our materialism, because if you are serious about achieving communism globally, Western people have to drastically scale back their consumption. And I think for me, a lot of it is kind of like living with your value. In terms of, if I am this communist, I have to try and imagine a world where everyone is equal, where everyone has a good, sustainable way of life. But that probably means I'm going to have to scale back my consumerism, my consumption. If I'd ever live in a communist global system, then I probably wouldn't have the same lifestyle I have today. And you have to be okay with that to advocate for this system. Like, socialism isn't a poverty cult, but if you are serious about achieving communism, then you have to think about the lifestyle you would then have if we equally distributed the world's resources to make sure everyone was fed, make sure everyone was housed, and keep progressing to a society where we are all truly free. And materialism and consumption really does not fit into that world right now, because as much as there's not scarcity of food in Western countries, plenty of countries still go hungry. Millions of people starve every year. Despite growing enough food for the world, it's not distributed equally, and one part of the world consumes it more than others, and often it's fed to us as consumer capitalist products. Like, how many different brands of ketchup do you have in America, or coffee, or all these things? Is this necessary? Do we need this? Or does this whole system we've created in Western countries primarily rely on the global capitalist exploitation of poorer countries to sustain a society of mass consumerism. So we're going to talk about all of this today. Before we go any further, please like the video, follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, but also on Instagram. Also consider becoming a patron. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible, and the benefits include getting exclusive content, access to the Discord server, and access to my Nintendo Switch friend code. And also check out my second channel and my subreddit down in the description. So before we start talking about Hasan and talking about just like the politics of consumer capitalism, I wanted to talk about my view, and I asked some people on Twitter how they felt about the left's relationship with consumer capitalism. Now, like I said, we all engage in capitalism, we all like nice things, we all buy things for ourselves that make us feel good, and that can be, like I said, technology, it can be food, it can be a whole variety of things. And this video really isn't criticizing people for liking nice things, because for some reason or another we like certain things, and we're also brainwashed by advertising to actually buy ourselves things. And now it's even more dystopian, where you have so many targeted ads, where so many people feel like, and I felt like this myself, when you're scrolling through Instagram, you get an ad which feels like it's absolutely either listened to you or it's read your mind. And in that system, no wonder we consume so much. But I just want to talk about a couple of things in terms of me personally. So I'm someone who is fairly comfortable with my level of consumption, because I don't buy myself loads of clothes, I don't buy myself loads of things, and basically I try and use everything I have until it breaks. So the setup I'm looking at here, I have a laptop, I have a small monitor, and I have a bigger monitor. So I've collected these over a number of years. The big monitor is like 6 years old. It's nothing special. Honestly, it doesn't actually look that good if you're playing games, but I like having it and I like getting use out of it. I have my computer, which is like nearly 2 years old at this point, and it works fine. Have no need to get a new one. It cost me like £900, but I really needed it for my job. And then I have my little monitor, which cost me like £200, which I bought for myself when I was like traveling. And that's a whole other like videos talk about the ethics of like traveling to different countries. But even though like my desk, which is holding all these chocolate oranges, that cost me £20 my second year of uni, because I went into my uni room, they said there'd be desks provided, there was no desk, went to the charity shop, and I bought this desk, used it for the rest of uni, and I still have it, and I think it's a really good desk, but I just needed a bit more space, so I'm just going to keep that until it breaks. But even like clothing, I have this jacket in front of me. I might post a picture of me wearing it. So I bought this jacket when I was 15, and luckily I hit my growth spurt when I was 15, so it still fits me today, and I still wear it. So I try and get a use out of everything I buy for a long time, and I'm not sure about the company who made that. I think it's a skating company. But because it's good quality, I paid like £20 for it. It's lasted me, how many years is even that? Like nearly 13 years I've been wearing this same jacket. And I don't mind, to be honest. I like it. I liked it at the time. I like it now. What's the point in buying loads of jackets? Like, of course, I do have some other jackets too. Maybe like 2 more. But I've collected them over time. And I don't really feel the need to buy more stuff. Like, I like the way they look still. They work, they're warm, why would I need more things? I'm obviously still participating in global capitalism by buying anything, but you just have to. Like, you have to buy clothes. I live in England, it gets cold, you have to buy a coat. Now, sometimes you just want to buy something for yourself. So when I was traveling, I bought this hat. And I think this is like a better example of consumerism, because I didn't need a hat, it was in Vietnam. But I literally paid the woman who made this, and she was making other ones in front of me, right? So in an ideal version of capitalism, something that Adam Smith would dream of, that's probably pretty good. Like, a lady makes something, she tells me what the price is, I give her the money, she gives me the hat, she keeps all the money. And I think that gets into some of the politics of consumerism, is that a lot of the time they hype up like British made or American made. And if you knew the clothes you bought were being made by a unionized workforce who are paid good, even though you can still recognize they are being exploited under capitalism, you can feel a lot better about that, because you're buying something like this hat and you're knowing the person who made it is getting paid decent enough because their union have agreed this payment. So there are some elements of like maybe more localized capitalism, and especially when you have like a developed country making the product and you pay for it, where it's a lot better. But then the problem comes, remember when AOC was advertising her hoodies, and they were made with union labor, and it cost a bit more. And people were freaking out, like, I'm not paying $50 for a hoodie. And that shows the problems with consumer capitalism in 2023, is that we want to consume as much as possible, but we also want it for as cheap as possible. And how do you get it for as cheap as possible? Well, you start putting jobs overseas where you can pay people terrible wages. And that's something we're going to touch on with the clothing industry and other things later. Even though I try and keep my consumption and I'm really not materialistic at all, I still buy myself nice things sometimes. So here's my Nintendo Switch, original Nintendo Switch. Bought it on launch day because I wanted one, you know, consuming. And then I bought this one when Tears of the Kingdom came out. And I just felt like this has been played so much. Its battery is terrible. It's really starting to slow down. It's really loud. So I'll just buy a new one. Did I need a new one? No, I didn't. Could I justify a new one in my head? Yeah, of course I could, because it was a better product, it works better, and I'm very, very happy I bought it. And even me, a communist who doesn't consider themselves a materialist, even sometimes I just like to buy nice things. But the thing is, I have good impulse control in that I won't just buy anything. I will only buy something that I can justify to myself. So like I said, everyone has their own relationship with consumer capitalism. Maybe you yourself, you eat organic food, you know where all of your like produce comes from, you know it's ethical, but maybe you're into like brands like Gucci and Prada, or if you're like me, you're into video games. So I'm not criticizing everyone for being a consumer because it's absolutely impossible not to be one, but that does lead to a mindset of this, and I remember this because of the Hogwarts Legacy drama. Buying this video game means you support transphobic values. I say as the metal in my cell phone used to record this was made by child labour. So now it's taken on a meaning of its own, where it's just like I said earlier, do whatever you want. Yeah, enriching someone that spreads transphobia is bad, but have you thought about, you know, your phone? How is that made? Do you need your phone? Do you really need your phone? You need a phone in this day and age. You need clothes. You need food. So I'm not going to criticize most people for not really caring where a lot of these come from or not really investigating it. It's more when you get to the consumer products that are pretty needless. Designer clothes made with really exploitative labor, which we're going to talk about. And then even the ideology of materialism, like buying yourself, you know, really fancy cars for like no reason, is something personally I would never do. And I always think about, if I won the lottery, I would just buy a house where I live and live in it. I'd probably either fix my car or I'd buy like a modest one. Like I said, I try my best to live with my values, but it's impossible in consumer capitalism because we all have to compromise, because there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. That doesn't mean we all have to be rabid materialists and just buy stuff for the sake of it and not feel bad and feed into this global system. I don't know about you, but to me, it's important to live my values. So I didn't buy Hogwarts Legacy. I won't play that game. I've had Raid Shadow Legends reach out to me for a sponsorship. It's an Israeli company. I said, no, I'm not going to buy Israeli product. And I know me as an individual, that's not going to change anything really. But I'm doing it because I want to ethically consume as much as possible. If there's something I really don't agree with, then I'm going to do that, right? Just to feel better. I don't want to partake in this system. I don't want to be complicit. I don't think everything in your life has to be about changing the world. I think sometimes it is what makes you feel better about yourself and how you live your values. And as left-wing people, I think more people should not be materialists, and I think more people should kind of reject consumer capitalism as much as possible. But now we're going to get into Hasan. So a lot of left-wing people absolutely hate Hasan. I don't personally hate him. I think he's a net positive, but I do think sometimes his response to criticism is really bad. He's explained why, because he feels like so much of it is bad faith. Now, lots of people meme on him and make fun of him, especially right-wing people, because they're like, well, this is the king of the socialists. The king of the socialists who spends $1,000 on a Gucci shirt he'll wear once and buys a car for $200,000, or, you know, pays $140,000 and is paying the rest off later and stuff. And I know this is old drama now, but I want to go through it and I want to just let Hasan kind of explain himself and then just talk about like how as leftists we should even feel about someone like this who clearly does good work in a lot of ways, educates people in a lot of ways. Like recently had like Lowell overruled on explaining about prison abolition. Like you can't say Hasan is doing damage, and maybe you can say even the aesthetic is appealing to people because he seems like a normal like rich celebrity. But then I'm going to get into some of the criticisms as well, and we'll look at him responding to the backlash for his shirt and for the car. Twitch streamer Hasan came under fire after he wore a $1,000 outfit at Coachella, which critics argued went against his socialist views. he hit back saying it's wild how he's been made the villain in this dispute. So let's have a look at him respond to the shirt and the car.
Like, look at this. She literally said, Hasan bad, my outfit good, I'm a better leftist. 68,000 likes. I know where it comes from with right-wingers. Like, oh, socialism is when no money. Socialism is a poverty cult. Socialism is a poverty cult. Dude, I never said I don't like luxury shit, okay? I mean, the shirt was not a good purchase regardless. When I am a normie-facing leftist content creator, perhaps the only one who is not a weirdo. I'm just a normal dude. So all of the abnormal weirdos that are permanently online are like, he's not behaving in the way that we would want. The idea that you're a good leftist or a bad leftist revolves around like how you spend your money is so stupid. People think you're just a performative socialist. I don't, but that's okay, fine. Like, who cares? Yeah, I'm a fake. I'm not real. I'm not a socialist. I'm a capitalist. Okay, I love capitalism. Num, 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 num. The reason why I got Gucci shirt, which is incredibly expensive and felt disgusting. Not that it matters. I can buy whatever the I want, and anyone that gets mad at that can suck me from the back. So I was like, I want to get something. I want to get something nice. Okay, I want to get something nice. We're at Coachella. This is gonna be douchey. Every celebrity, every famous person, everyone that has a decent amount of money at some point has worn Gucci. With not a single person getting mad at them. So I went and I bought the shirt, and the shirt is very expensive. But that was the reasoning behind it. In the grand scheme of things, 200K isn't even that much. No, it's a lot of money, man. You're crazy. Like, don't be this person either, okay? Like, don't be the type of person who's like saying 200K isn't that much. Of course, it's a lot of money. It's not $200,000. It's like the car itself is $140,000, okay? Like, if we're talking about actual numbers, it's a load of money, man. Are you crazy? Most people don't make that kind of money in a year. Are you insane? Of course, it's a lot of money. No, it is. It is. It is a lot of money. Like, don't be delusional. You know that. Of course, it is. Totally an abundant purchase. It's a luxury car. I'm 30 years old, you know. I don't want to be like a 50-year-old guy and then finally be like, you know what, I'm gonna have a nice car now. Like, no matter what I got, people were gonna be mad. For example, if I were to have bought a cheaper car, if I were to have gone with another Toyota, they were gonna say I'm LARPing as a poor person. Like, I'm LARPing and LARPing as a poor, and trying to make it seem like I'm a poor person to be more relatable.
So do I hate Hasan for buying a 1K Gucci shirt and a 200K car? No. Would I do that if I was him? Like, would I feel comfortable doing that? No, as well. So I want to talk about that because I've outlined how I'm not materialistic. I would never spend that amount of money on anything, even if I was as rich as him. But it is a guy who seems to like the life of celebrity and wealth. And it's not a guy who is socialist because he hates consumer capitalism. He very much enjoys consumer capitalism more than most of us do because he's allowed to. And you guys can ask yourself, if you were that rich, would you do what he does? I personally wouldn't, but a lot of you might say, hell yeah, I would buy like loads of cars. I would spend all that money and I would flex all the time, which is fine. He made a good point as well in a tweet afterwards. He says, like, Markiplier has this reputation as being an amazing guy, way wealthier than me, and no one ever criticizes him. But I can see both sides, really, because there's been lots of socialists throughout history, communist revolutionaries, who have come from, like, wealthy backgrounds. And sometimes you need that because they need to be removed from everything so they can actually write the political theory. Like, Karl Marx was bankrolled by Engels, who was a very wealthy man, right? If I'm going to give fair criticism to Hasan, I respect a lot of the good work he does. I respect a lot of the people he has on his stream. I respect a lot of the ways he teaches his audience about things. Out of all the political Twitch streamers, I would say he's actually one of the best, who has politics that fit in more with my own. But like I was saying earlier, I still think if you are like an actual socialist who wants socialism on the path to communism, don't know if he does, then I think you still have to kind of like live your morals. Like, we all have hypocrisies here and there. Like a 200K car, and I know he jokingly flexed it and stuff, but when loads of your audience are just like young working class people and you're teaching them this theory and then you're buying very material things and kind of like showing them off, like a 1K shirt you're never going to wear again, I don't think it's personally like the worst thing ever, but it just speaks to your worldview, and that's why people might have a problem with it. Like I said, Hasan, net benefit, net positive, but my main problem is if this is what you're teaching people, there's a limit in how they will reimagine society, and that's what we actually have to do as left-wing people. I'm not advocating for Bernie Sanders to become president and then everything will be right in the world. I'm not advocating for Jeremy Corbyn to become prime minister. I'm not even advocating for the UK becoming like Denmark or something, because I see that as the path to a different future. And countries like the UK, Denmark, they only exist because of the global capitalist exploitation. And I've actually seen some other left-wing streamers saying, like, I want everyone to have an iPhone, like the same iPhone as me. And that fundamentally is the wrong way to look at how we're going to change like the fundamental inequality of the world, because we don't want to give everyone consumer capitalism. We don't want everyone to have the same consumer capitalist lifestyle of me or even Hasan. We don't even want that to be possible, because at this moment, there is not enough resources in the world. The planet can't even sustain wealthy countries having this lifestyle. How would it sustain the whole entire world? What we have to recognize is we're going to have to give up some privileges as Western consumers if we want equality at all. And that goes beyond that we actually exist in this consumer capitalism relative world because we exploit poor people. And this whole thing goes actually into companies like Gucci, clothes companies, where we exploit the labor of poor countries so we can have these nice consumer capitalist things. So yes, I appreciate Hasan, but my problem sometimes with a lot of American leftists is that I think because America has this such aspirational culture of I must make it, I must climb the ladder, I must buy all these things to show my wealth, where the UK kind of has like this class system where it's like know your place peasant. I think sometimes what's missing from the American leftist like understanding of how we achieve things like socialism and communism is a fundamental rejection of consumer capitalism, not just because it's unethical, it's because you're playing into capitalist realism where you're normalizing this and you think the mark of progress for the world is every country reaching the same level of consumption, like I said, which is fundamentally unethical and also would destroy the planet. So someone like Hasan, buy what you want, do what you want. I still think you do good work. And also I hear the criticism of he's just like teenagers first leftist they see. He's not there to make them all radical communists, which is fine as well. But I'm saying sometimes because of the parasocial aspects, Hasan's ideology will become their own ideology, and then it's hard to move them out of that. You see that so much with Twitch streaming communities, in that they literally just become clones of the Twitch streamer and can't really actually handle positions that go beyond that. So now I just want to talk about the politics. So I had something on Gucci, and it was about Gucci hiring contractors in Italy's Little China, which is paying like sweatshop workers €2 an hour. And this just talks about all these Chinese immigrants who go over there and they make the fashionable brands. They're actually called like ghosts because no one actually wants to see them in Italian society because it's so xenophobic. But I wanted to focus on a more extreme example. So $26 a month. Ethiopians are being paid the world's lowest wages to make your Calvin Kleins. Ethiopia is trying to become the new Bangladesh of garment factory labor by promising the lowest wages in the world, but the workers themselves report they're struggling to survive on $26 a month while stitching clothes for Calvin Klein, H&M, and other brands. In 2015-16, Ethiopia built the state-owned Hawassa Industrial Park. Park currently has 25,000 employees producing garments for brands like Levi's, Guess, and Tommy Hilfiger. Meanwhile, the influx of workers has driven up the cost of accommodation. A single room within a few km of the park costs about $52 a month. One young woman showed us the concrete ground floor room she and 3 fellow workers rent from a homeowner. There's no toilet, only an open air latrine nearby. The woman said she and her roommates work different shifts and she had some of her belongings stolen. Sometimes she added there's no food left when she returns from work. All 4 women sleep on thin mattresses on the floor. When it rains, water seeps into the living space. We heard from others at the park that some employers hand out plastic sheets, which employees place between their mattress and the concrete floor in an attempt to stay dry. An October 2017 survey told of workers fainting from hunger, as well as being too tired from walking 3 hours a day to come to work and go back home, and the lack of energy and fainting due to the workers not eating properly because they cannot afford to eat 2 meals per day. I'm sure there are good videos about like fast fashion and designer fashion and how it's all built on this really cheap labor from the poorest countries in the world. Bangladesh is a big one that makes clothes at like Primark, and now Ethiopia making these designer clothes. And like I said, although in Western countries we are all exploited under capitalism, we also have to remember the global exploitation between countries and brands from like Western countries and poorer countries like this, which are significantly worse off, and they can get away with more labour violations and paying them less, and often the result is also worse quality as well. But capitalism does not care about that. It's all about profit. And although the story I'm telling you is like nothing new, that's how everyone knows the saying, no ethical consumption under capitalism. I think sometimes as consumers, we have to be aware, like all these designer brands, they're being made in Ethiopian sweatshops. And in that, do you really want to play into materialism where you'll spend a lot of money on designer clothes while you also know it's being made with really coercive and exploitative labour, where 4 women have to sleep in the same apartment, which costs a significant amount of their monthly allowance, and it has like no toilet, and you know, it really is a terrible place to live. So that's my main thing, is that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, but with someone like Hasan buying something so throwaway like a £1,000 Gucci shirt, that's what I kind of mean when you have to just like live your values a bit more, because he probably knows that designer clothes are made with exploitative labour, and he's also helping perpetuate an ideology of materialism. And I just think as left-wing people, especially as influential left-wing people, we shouldn't do that. And although he likes to think of himself as some normie, none of us are going to attain that lifestyle or that wealth, and none of us are going to be able to afford to spend that money on things that are made in exploitative ways. So if you are showing the world like, I am a socialist, here is socialism, I still think you can do that by being a normal guy, buying yourself nice clothes. I'm not even saying don't buy yourself nice clothes, but I just think the excessiveness of it all and going overboard, I think it's a bit much in my opinion. I'm a bit nihilistic as well in my outlook, and I'm a bit pessimistic. So I don't think like the individual being better really affects things. My logic with it is about personal values and feeling good about yourself and living true to your values. So that's why I do it, because I'm well aware a lot of my individual choices don't mean anything. And I'm well aware I'm outnumbered by all the capitalists who love consuming, who aspire to excessive consumption. So I don't know if this will really make much of a difference, but it's a good way to live with myself in that I tell everyone my values, I promote my values as something good to aspire to. I'd be a bit of a hypocrite if I didn't try most of the time to live my values. And like I said, we're all hypocrites in some ways, we all fail, but trying is important, I feel like, and especially if you have an audience. Now I want to talk about like the ethics generally, because it's kind of like class based as well. So for someone like me, who's more privileged and a more privileged Westerner, I don't make like really great money from YouTube, but I'm not a poor person. So I'm in a position to be ethical as much as possible. Like I have that privilege to actually be an ethical consumer when I want to be. And that is just not possible for a lot of people, because if you are living paycheck to paycheck, you don't care where the food comes from. You don't care where the clothes come from. There's a reason things like Primark are so popular in the UK, because it's like a budget clothing company. And I'm not going to tell someone who goes shopping there that you're a terrible person, because if you need to buy clothes, you're just going to buy clothes. And that's another point of privilege. But I guess what you have to argue and tell people who might be in that situation is you just got to kind of condition them over to leftism and realise that the people who make these clothes, even though you're in a poor position yourself, are actually in a far worse position, because that's the inequality of global capitalism, and maybe using that example to try and get people over to a left-wing way of thinking so that actually it is more of us who can affect change. And there's one more thing I do want to talk about as well, is I think corporations love this ethical consumer garbage. Do you know why? Because they shift all the blame from themselves onto us. So the reason that all these corporations like pollute the world so much more than individuals, that's actually our fault. It's our fault because we buy their products. If you stop buying their products, then that will solve the problem. But also, if you start buying from the corporations who greenwash stuff and they say, well, we're environmentally friendly and stuff like that, then you can feel better about yourselves. And they love that as well as a marketing trick. But the simple fact is, ethical consumption, no matter how many of us do it, is never really going to be enough because of the capitalist system we live in, which allows corporations to basically buy our democracy and get away with all these things. Get away with insane pollution. Get away with toxic chemical spills. Get away with toxic oil spills, get away with all these things because they buy our politicians, they buy the law, they're above the law. And they like to say, well, if you don't like it, go to another company. Or if you're like Elon Musk, like, oh, buy the electric cars, save the planet. But for people like that, it's just a marketing gimmick to enrich themselves. And people like Elon Musk with their Tesla car factories, they perpetuate the unequal global capitalist system. That's why Teslas are made by cheaper laborers in China, right? So you can't fall for greenwashing all the time because people like Elon Musk love to do it. And are they making the world a better place? Are they stopping pollution? Are they doing any of these things because we have an expensive electric car that most people can't afford? No. So they're all things to keep in mind. And like I said at the start, this video isn't, this is how left-wing people should feel about consumerism. This is how people should feel about materialism, because I didn't want it to be that. Because I know based on everyone's perspective, we will have a different relationship to materialism, we'll have a different relationship to consumer capitalism, like we all have different relationships to various different things. And I'm not going to judge people too harshly. We're all trying to survive in this hellscape. I'm not saying you're a terrible person if you buy fast fashion, designer fashion, if you excessively buy things like tech, which you know is probably made in an unethical way. That's the reason the saying exists in the first place, that there is no ethical consumption. But we shouldn't take that, like we've been saying, to mean buy whatever and don't think about it. Because like I've been saying throughout the video, it's all about personal value. It's all about like living your morals and trying to aspire to be this better person who does live up to everything you teach people. Like Hasan, I feel like shouldn't be a materialist or this big consumer. It goes against the spirit of the ideology he's pushing. I don't want him cancelled because of that, but like I said, there is a big hypocrisy in that he goes even further than buying nice things. He buys excessively nice things that are expensive. Then we should all aspire to be more ethical consumers in the sense that we shouldn't have this outlook that we should just buy anything, no matter how excessive, no matter how pointless it is, just because, well, you can't judge me because the whole world is a mess. But anyway, that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. How much of a consumer are you? And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.